Welcome to the Myofascial Health Podcast, hosted by me, Unu. Follow along as I explore the depths of John Barnes' myofascial release approach on my road to mastery. Along the way, I'll be sharing the lessons I learn as I open my myofascial release practice in Austin, Texas, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I do. Welcome back to the Myofascial Health Podcast. Now, I'm joined here by a very special guest. She's been an occupational therapist for almost 30 years. She started her MFR journey in 2020. She's Reiki certified, yoga certified, and bar certified, which has to do with access consciousness. It's my pleasure to introduce Taranjit Grewal. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we just actually crossed paths. I was retaking MOBs with Dave Frederick in San Antonio, and you happened to be in that class. And something caught my eye. The name that you introduced yourself to me years ago was something else. And so, can you speak about what your name was and what you kind of returned it back to? I even noticed it on your Zoom link. It still says Tanya's iPhone, but as you know, I've introduced you as Taranjit.
Yes, it goes back to when I was 12-year-old, and I wanted to fit into classrooms and wanted to be part of everything. And instead of being Taranjit, I started telling people to call me Taranjit, Tanya, instead of Taranjit. And just in February, I took this class, T for T, and that's where I was just going through my process. Kathy and Sedona was facilitating the whole process, and suddenly I was like, there was a little 12-year-old of me standing in the corner, kind of like a sad, and then I just looked at that, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's me. I left me at 12 when I've decided to ask people to change, to call me who I am, and that's not who I am. It's Taranjit. So since then, it's been a journey itself, because everyone knows me by Tanya, and trying to get everyone to call me Taranjit. And so at work, pretty much, I would say 90% people are calling me Taranjit. So a lot of times I go through actually emotional thing when I tell people my name, and they're like, well, don't you have another name? So I have to kind of explain, no, this is my name. And it's okay if it takes time for you to learn my name. I won't mind, but that's just what I go by. It's that. So it's really having to stand up and be okay that that's who I am. Even though I'm different, this is what my parents gave me. This is who I am.
And how does it feel to embody your name, Taranjit, versus going by Tanya, which you kind of did to fit in or appease and make it easier for others?
Wholesome. I feel complete. I know there's still pieces of me out there that I'm still picking up, but this, I didn't really realize how it had made me feel. Like how it's just a name, no big deal. That's what we say. It's not a big deal. Just call me this. But it really, I think there's a deep, deep down emotional release that I was going through, and understanding that was a huge missing link within me. So who I am and what I do now as a practitioner, it makes me part of me as a whole.
I love that. I can resonate with that story because, my name is also not super common. I go by Unu, and I get Uno, I get Zunu. I was like, it doesn't even have a Z in it.
Yeah.
So I know that it's part of wanting to fit in and being accepted, that you kind of give that piece of yourself away and say, you know what? I can sacrifice this because it'll make it easier. But just like you said, that's giving it away. And there was a period in my life when I started business, and I'll say that the people that I was around didn't really know me as the MFR therapist. And it was tough for me to maybe be myself because I felt like I had to prove myself like, hey, I can help people from their pains and injuries. And they didn't see me in that light because I'd grown up with them. And I started to go by the name Q just to make it really simple. I thought I had to reinvent myself. And so I had to go on a T for T. I didn't have to, but I went on a T for T. And this was my first time. This was in 2022. And I remember having to look at myself and the relationship that I had created with business. You know, I had thought it was like this grind where you had to work 80 hours a week till your eyes bleed out. And that was just part of business. And I really gave myself up in doing that. And I remember introducing myself and writing on those papers, just the letter Q. And they were the ones who were like, what's wrong with Unu? And I was like, nothing's wrong with Unu. And like, well, we're going to call you Unu. And I said, thank you, you know? And even though it's just a name, it's not just a name because it's your own identity, you know? So when you are able to embody who you feel like you truly are, there is something about that. And so for anyone who finds themselves in this scenario where, hey, it would just be easier if I got called this, I'll just say it's not that hard to learn somebody's name, you know? And it's funny because I think for me, it was like you had to be someone really great to have a weird name that people would learn. But what I'm learning now is like it's just common courtesy, you know? Like it doesn't take much effort. It's not like I have any like exclamation points or different noises in my name that makes it extra hard. But like today, when I watched, there's a San Antonio Spurs basketball player. His name is Victor Wembanyama, and nobody has any problems pronouncing his name. You know, granted, he's one of the best NBA players, but all that to say is, hey, it doesn't matter how long it takes, and it might even take a couple of times. But don't give yourself away or that piece of yourself away just to appease somebody else, because then you're losing that piece of yourself in which you've come now, at this point in your life and said, man, I gave that piece away and now I'm taking it back and I feel complete. There's this part of you that feels whole again. On that note, you went to a T for T, and that is an acronym for therapy for the therapist. If you're in myofascial release, it's an opportunity for therapists to get treated. And because I think a lot of times we spend all of our energy helping others, it creates a space where, hey, we don't have to be the helper. We can be the receiver. And I think that it's a great opportunity if you have the chance to do it. I know that I am able to get out of my own way. I'm able to kind of release subconscious holding patterns, challenge belief systems, and I usually walk away feeling much better. How was your entire experience with your T for T?
Amazing. Besides the name and just I had a couple of goals, being able to sit like on the floor. And just like you said, we're always helping others, don't have enough time for ourselves, even though you should do your daily self-care, self-release. But it was just like very difficult. So when I went for T, I had this goal. I want to be at the temple, be able to sit on the floor and be able to just listen, not have aches and pain. So Rob was there and Kathy and Denise, they're all like, okay, we've got your goal. This is where we're going to start. And now even I sit at the temple and I'm like, my goal is like 30 minutes to sit on the floor, just a meditative kind of a grounded space. And it's amazing. And I go back to the gift I received. So it's like, being able to have better posture, having the awareness of more of who you are. I feel like it given me peel a couple of layers off of stuff that I didn't serve me anymore, but also given me freedom in my own body, more range of motion.
I love that. And what are those layers that you released?
Worthiness. Am I it was like it just kept showing up for me, worthy. I've took responsibility I was 11-year-old when we moved to the States from India, and not speaking language. It was just like I took on responsibility. I started learning English a lot faster than my parents or my sister, so I just kind of took that role as a young kid. I needed to translate everything. I needed to be right. I cannot make errors. This is, if they're buying a house, I'm the translator. So I better understand it. So it's that whole responsibility. And then I have 5 sisters. So 3 of us came and then 3 were still back home. So it was like, how come they selected me as one of the girls to come, right? Well, my whole, why not them? This whole weird, dynamics in my brain going on. Like, so besides worthiness, the love, right? Like, how did they decide to love, to have me here, not them? So there was the whole dynamics. So that layer got lifted off. So whatever that was, I let it go. There's no questions on that. It's just what it was. But as a kid, I sense that you register totally different. It's just like you see from your perspective what your parents are doing, what everyone else. It's just different, and and not having enough financial means because we just got here, starting all over, and that the little things mattered, right? Like just it didn't matter how much we had, but it was like we always had enough. But it's having gratitude. That was a big one. Even though I had it, my parents always said, hey, be grateful what you got. But not till I went to T for T. That ability to just have abundance and the gratitude, being worthy of what I have, it's the big one.
And those are huge lessons. Those are
Yes.
huge lessons. So congratulations if you got
Thank you.
far and embodied those things and felt those things. I think that's a huge thing. I think a lot of times, especially in today's, let's say, economy, where there seems to be a lot of scarcity, and what you recognize is abundance and gratitude and worthiness are just a shift in mindset. It's not to say that I have a bunch of things. I don't actually think that's abundance to have a lot of material things, but to feel like everything is working in your favor, that
Yes.
even if you take a couple of hits in terms of, hey, things don't work out your way, you know that it's going to work out. And I think that having a positive mindset that helps you see those things, being grateful to things that you have, as opposed to being ungrateful for the things that you don't have, that is just the shift of perspective. And if you can look at the world through that lens, you start to notice that things feel a little bit lighter because there's less pressure. You just let things play out the way they're supposed to play out. And I know that in my life, I try to have a gratitude practice. And what I realized is, yes, if I have a chance to go to a T for T or Sedona, those are like big things, but I don't get to do that all the time. But if I just can say, man, I have a healthy body, like I have hands that work, I have legs that work, I can socialize with my friends, go out to Valentine's with my wife. Like these are all things to be grateful for, because when you lose those things, you realize how important they are. Now, for you, we kind of went in a reversed order, not to say that there is an order, but how did you get into myofascial release?
Through my coworker, it was about like 6 years ago. We were just sitting around, and so she's like, have you ever? I've gotten John Barnes flyers for many, many years, but it was like when she mentioned, have you heard of MFR or John Barnes? I say, yeah, I've seen those flyers. And so she's like, well, let me show you. So we were just in the therapy gym, and she's like, well, just put your hands on me here. And she just started unwinding and right in front of me. And that was like the first experience of this whole work. And I'm like, are you serious? What is this work called? And that was kind of the starting point for me to read more into it. She taught us just a basic cross-hand technique, how it can be beneficial. And then I took MFR, the series class, and that was it, beginning journey, and loved it ever since.
That's awesome. Now, when you saw your friend unwind, what did you feel in that moment?
I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is this? I've never seen something like this. And this is real. I just touched you and you just flipped over. Like, it was just like quick because she was so open and so receiving. And I guess they were just like, I just put my hands on. She said, just put your hands here. And, and I'm like, okay. And there she goes. So I'm like, it was just, It was like I've never like any watched any videos. I didn't know what unwinding was. That was just my first experience of it, and I was sold. I was like, okay, what else? Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a slower learner, I guess. The first time I saw that, it was so bizarre to me, you know? And granted, the first time I saw it was when John was on stage, when he was here, rest in peace, JB. And he has some sort of, they can look kind of violent, like they're really big and explosive. Not to say that all of them have to be, but when I saw that for the first time, I was like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
And so it was less subtle. And so for those of y'all who are new to this podcast, what we're talking about is unwinding. And unwinding is this involuntary movement that everybody has the capability of doing. And I think kids are actually really receptive to it because they haven't learned what it means to be in the world. And so you just follow your body, just like your early stretch in the morning. You know, there's not really a direction that you go. You just go where it feels good. And this is actually something that is a key component to myofascial release. It helps kind of go into positions of past traumas, helps you process it, and ultimately release it. Whereas in every other modality, I don't think I've ever seen or heard or felt anything like it. Now, when you started your MFR journey, you took it in 2020.
Yes.
And that was kind of a wild year. That was the COVID years. What was that like?
So our class, I'm trying to think, was it? Yeah, it was the mask, everything we had to wear. It was very, because it was the starting of it. So, but I'm trying to remember, was it that class? I think it was just right before COVID that when I'm trying to remember, it was 2020, but I'm trying to remember way back in that time. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to take all three. It was in Tennessee. And I was like, there's no way you can just have somebody just flop over on a mat and, start unwinding. So John was the one, he was there and he had his four instructors with him. And I'm like, I'm at the table. Okay, y'all can do whatever. I'm not letting y'all go anywhere. So I was like, I don't think this is, because the only experience I had was my coworker, and that was her unwinding. I've never had anything like it. So I go up there and I'm like, okay, y'all can do whatever. And then they're like, okay, John's like, okay, start over again. So it was like, they're all around me, and there I go. And I was gone. My head's down the floor. My legs are up. I was completely like, somewhere I was falling, some, experience I was having. But it was just initially, it was like, no way this can happen. And then just by their touch, just by their connection, I was able to ground myself and just let go. And there I was. So that was very, very profound. And I was like, okay, you know, what else is possible in me? And I was like, okay, this must be just one time. But within that, because it was MFR1, unwinding, and MFR2. I did the whole series. And by MFR2, another, process, another unwinding. It was just like, my body was like, okay, I love this. Let's keep going.
You got it. I think the first time you feel it within yourself, every question or hesitation or reservation that you have gets answered. And I think the important distinction is we're going into the feeling intelligence. John often talked about we all have this intuition, this feeling intelligence. And it's not the academic side where you have to rationalize or make sense of it. A lot of this doesn't make sense. But after you experience it, you often feel much better. And that's what you go with. Versus, I think in today's society, typically we are told not to trust our intuition. We're told to, hey, go by the numbers. And while that works in some industries, like, for example, engineering, or, if you're an architect or you're building skyscrapers or bridges, yes, all those numbers have to make sense. But when we're working with the human body, it's not rational all the time. And so you have to recognize that, otherwise you're going to hit a wall. Something that John believes as well as myself is there's no such thing as a protocol. There's 8 billion people in the world. That means there's 8 billion different fascial patterns. And if you were just to have one way of treating everybody, you're not going to be able to help the vast majority of them. Now, I think for myself, when I felt the unwinding, there was something to it. And maybe you're better than me, not to say it's competition, but the ultimate form of control is being able to let go of control. And it sounds like you were able to let go completely, like right off the bat.
Yep.
Whereas for me, I kind of nudged into it. I kind of like it was a slower process, but that was my process and my journey. And not to say that one is better or worse, it's just different. But I'll find that there's some people who spend years in this work and they're like, I've never been able to unwind. And it's like, I almost want to say, like, what are you afraid of? What's stopping you from letting go? And oftentimes it's like, I just want to feel like I'm in control,
That's yep.
What would you coach someone to do if someone said, hey, I just can't unwind? I've been in myofascial release for like 3 years. Like, what's going on?
I guess the question goes back to them is like what is holding you? Like what is it gonna take for you to let go? And how usually what I say in my practice is like sink in, just go deeper, just be here. If nothing else, just connect to my hands and see if you can go deeper. And then I'll explain like, okay, a little bit of movement is okay. And it's just part of the body's response to healing. There's nothing wrong with this. This is normal process. Just I'm here to support you and just allow yourself to be in this space.
I love that. I think what I'm hearing is you're getting them to kind of feel into their bodies. I think you're
Yes.
turning off the intellect and just saying, hey, can you feel my hands? Can you feel the table? And what are you feeling? And it takes some practice because I think a lot of times, especially when we grow up in those environments where a lot of responsibilities are casted onto us, you're constantly thinking. You always constantly have to think, like, what do I have to do next? Because you feel like you have to be perfect, which is going to set people back. I think I heard you say that in the beginning. And something that you recognize, at least for myself, is that when I let go of control, then the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is in control. And then what tends to guide me is to a path that I couldn't have even imagined for myself. And there have been many times where I've consciously made the wrong decision, but life has a certain way of correcting myself as long as I choose to trust it. Have you always been someone who has been able to let go and follow your intuition, or is that something that you had to practice?
I think I had to practice since my journey started probably a little bit before my fascia. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and not knowing how to control my anxiety. And it was really affecting my work, my home, everything. So it's that point where I was asking universe, whatever, please guide me to help me so I can help others and how I can be more grounded, how I can help myself. So till then, that's when I like started doing yoga, some meditation, and that's where some things started changing for me. But before that, I wasn't, as intuitive or grounded to be able to receive.
Got it. And how would you help someone if they had trouble with anxiety?
Oh, wow. It's like when I work in the hospital now, it's like my hands, just put it on them
Yeah.
and just connect to themselves, allow their, like just go through like a scanning. So I just teach them basic principles of you can scan your body, how you can just connect, or heartfulness, allowing to open your heart and just receive and allow this thoughts will continue going on in front of you, but just don't get caught up in it. If you do, bring it back to yourself. So just the basic principles of that. And then they'll able to like, okay, so they're able to apply and they'll tell me, oh, you know what? I slept better. I'm not as anxious anymore.
I love that. I think I could add to that. I think that's something we learn in myofascial release is to be fully present in the moment.
Yes.
Anxiety often comes from thoughts about the future and feeling like things need to be done. And
Yes.
so, one way that I've been able to help with my own anxiety is putting things into action. I think it's when I get caught up in my head that my anxiety is getting bigger. But if I start doing certain things, it'll actually put things in motion and I'll feel like I'm actually accomplishing the things that need to be done. But beyond that, it's also being present, like staying in the present moment, not ahead of yourself, not behind yourself, just present. And when you invite your patients to say, hey, just feel into my hands, can you feel this touch? I do think that there's just something soothing about physical touch. And so when you're able to do that, you're sensing that in the moment. You feel things in the moment, And so for anyone else who maybe suffers from anxiety, and know that it's normal. Everyone does that, especially if you're older and you have more obligations and responsibilities. But it's always returning back to the present. And so whether you do myofascial release, self-treatment, meditation, a yoga practice, it's all these forms to make sure you're present and in the moment. And that's where John says you're at your most powerful. When you're centered and present, then all the opportunities are there at your disposal. But if you're hell bent on one way and then you start getting anxiety because you have to figure out this one way, oftentimes you're going to be out of your body. You're not going to be present. And then your power is taken away from you. Do you have any thoughts to share on that?
I think you're right. You're right on that. Definitely. I feel like as I've been more present throughout the day, I don't have anything else to think about. I'm in the moment. When I'm with the patients, I'm with in the moment. So, like you said, being in the past or worrying about the future, if you don't go there, then it doesn't matter. You're in the moment. And that makes a huge difference to be grounded, be present for yourself. And for my own, I haven't had any anxiety issues for maybe 6 years since I've been practicing MFR, practicing all my other breath work, everything for myself. But this work is so powerful for each one of us to be able to learn for our own and then to be able to help others.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Now, I think you said that you are in an inpatient setting. How has myofascial release been able to be applied in the inpatient setting? Because to my knowledge, usually it's about productivity. You have to see patients, so many hours out of the day. And it seems like it would make me, at least when I was interning at an inpatient clinic, that it would be in a rush. How have you been able to adopt myofascial release in your work?
It's been interesting. I actually started working with the staff. So I told them, hey, do this technique, MFR, and I think I told you bars, kind of combining if we can do relaxation session for the employees. So it was like 2.5 years ago. That's kind of where it started coming into it, and getting CEO to come try it, getting the DTO, director of therapy, to try it, getting the CFO for the hospital to try it. So when they kind of saw the benefits of this work and some of the coworkers, therapists, then they like, okay. And then I slowly like, oh, you know what? I would love to work with this patient because I think they can benefit from this work. They already knew what this work is about. So I really didn't have to, we're forever teaching people what this all work is about, but I feel like generally they kind of have an idea. So now it's been like, okay, I understand. So now they just tell me, okay, therapists will refer their clients that are not able to function. They're just so much out of their body. They're just not present enough for them to receive this, exercises and all this thing that we do in an inpatient. So they're like, hey, can you see this person? I'm like, sure. So that's kind of where now, and three out of the four doctors are on board with it. So that's the beautiful thing, is when the whole group of the doctors, the whole, the referral base, they all are understanding. And then it's a little bit easier to do what you want to do. Again, it is productivity. I am still an occupational therapist. I do still have to do my part of it for as my requirements inpatient, but I will do like a 30-minute and 30-minute of regular treat. And what I've realized over the few years, I don't have to do so much of the OT part. They can still benefit from their ADL independence when they receive this work. they're just so with it. They're just performing so much better. So it's like, whereas the other OTs are really trying to work on this, practicing the ADLs, I let them know first day, hey, this is what I need to be doing for you, but this is the extra work I can do for you. So if you work on this, we can do more of the MFR work. And they're like, okay, they are sold on the first day. Please, I want this work. I will practice, start work sitting and during my dressing so I can still, do my OT part, teach them how to be able to care for themselves, how to transfer, how to sit to stand. But this foundation of MFR is huge in an inpatient. I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like, it's the missing link like John talks about in rehab, especially in inpatient, when they go through surgical procedures or they've been on a floor for hours or 2 days, and now they're back in rehab, and we're like, let's get up, let's go therapy, let's do this. They're not connected. They're not grounded. They don't have the ability. So when we apply this gentle pressure, we ground them, they connect to themselves. The next day is like, even after the session, you see their facial expression change. And next day, it's like, oh, they're like, oh, this patient hasn't gotten up for 5 days. I do 1 day with them. Next day, they're ready to work with me. They're ready to get into the chair. That is MFR. It's profound. I can't, all credit goes to John, and this work is wonderful.
That's amazing. One, I just want to commend you on how you went about it. You didn't just say, hey, this is what I need to do, and this is what's best for the patient. You said, hey, why don't you try this to the CEO? You said the therapy director, and then your coworkers. And so then everyone kind of has an idea before you introduce it to the patients. I think that was, a wonderful thing. And, you're able to be humble about it. And then in doing so, you're able to spread the work and help the patients. I think that's the main part. You're able to help the patients. And I think motivation is a big part of our therapy, right? Like if a patient is unmotivated, it's very tough for them to get along with the program. But just by having a hands-on component where you actually are able to help them feel into their bodies, I think there's that connection that they feel subconsciously where it's like, oh, this person cares about me. And then when they feel better, they're like, hey, I'll do the exercises, versus it's very tough for some patients. I remember just being like everybody knows the value of diet and exercise or nutrition and exercise, but it's hard to keep up with it. But when you have someone who's like, hey, I believe in you, like, hey, we're going to help you feel better so that you can move around better. And as long as you meet me halfway, then we're both in this together. Versus just saying, hey, you're just this number on a clipboard and I had to come by and do X, Y, and Z for however many minutes. There's not that connection. There's not going to be that buy-in, and then they're going to be unmotivated. So
Yes.
I just think you've done a wonderful job of not only introducing myofascial release to your own working place, getting the buy-in of your managers to the patients and even your peers. I just think you did a wonderful job. So good job on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's ongoing progress.
Yeah, and you had shared with me a kind of research thing that you had wanted to do. Can you speak on that?
Yes. So I feel like anything we want to introduce in a medical model, we got to have research to back it up. So there's already part of information the hospital gathers. It's for like hip patients. They have all this. We are hip certified. So through medical credentialing. So we already have the fundamental part of it. So I told my director of therapy I would love to just do MFR work with these patients and see how the benefits are. So I feel like they will be able to understand what we're doing and compare the data from patients that didn't have MFR and then that did receive the MFR work and compare to see, like a 3 month. So we're thinking of doing it probably end of this year with the university and inpatient gathering data and applying MFR work. So I'm really, really excited. It's still in the works of how it's going to unfold, but it's in our goals for the year. So my director knows. So the goal is to have MFR as a program in our hospital.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing. Go ahead.
And then, to do the study, to, start with one diagnosis of it and just general kind of compare and show. I know how it's going to be. I mean, I can tell you the results, but I want to be able to, do the study, show it to them, in the medical model, how this can be a huge, huge beneficial, and every therapist needs to be at least taking 1 or 2 classes of this, and it sets us apart from everything else as a rehab.
That's amazing. Yeah. I also stand by that. I think there's a part of us or a part of me who's like, if you're doing the good work, what do you need the research for? But if the goal is to spread myofascial release, you kind of have to do that because the medical model is, hey, we have research-based evidence. And for you to be able to spearhead this movement towards that in your hospital, then I think that only good things can grow from it. So I know it's a lot of work. If there's anything that I could do to help, please let me know. But I think you're doing a great job, not only introducing it to your hospital. I think when we went to MOBS, you even had your coworkers there. So I thought, hey, you're building this little myofascial release bubble in your workplace, which I think is amazing.
Thank you. Yes, I think when you believe in something, you don't have this, it's not like you're passionate about it, you share it. And I just hope that this work continues to grow. And I'm hoping that whenever we need to have rehab or something, there's therapists that that are already working in this field.
I can't wait to see that day when, I have an injury and it's like, hi, I went to the PT and they did myofascial release John's way. I'm like, oh, that'd be magic.
Yeah.
Now, if someone wanted to work with you, how would they find you?
I'm just starting my website. It's going to be called mfrhands.com. So they can log me, find me on there. And then my email is taranjitgrewal@gmail.com.
Do you want to spell that for them?
Taranjit is Taranjit. Last name Grewal, Grewal @gmail.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes. But before we get out of here, is there any last message you'd like to share with my audience?
No, I think just I believe we're the pioneers of this. John was 50 years ago or so, or even more. We just continue to need to spread the word, spread the love, and the true internal journey is the only journey for us, all of us. And to be able to utilize this work to be able to create this is amazing. So I recommend, if you haven't ever tried MFR work, I highly, highly recommend find a therapist and go, at least do a couple of sessions. You'll see what, we're talking about.
I love that. Well, I just want to thank you for your time. I enjoyed this conversation. Definitely learned some new things. Definitely rooting for you as you move forward into this research part. But thank you for your time and your energy on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Myofascial Health. I help myofascial release therapists create beautiful websites for their MFR practices, even if they aren't tech savvy. If you're just starting your MFR practice, or you're an experienced MFR practice owner, learn more about how I can help at www.myofascial.health/website.